So today we're going to be talking a little bit about Tccc. Tccc is Tactical Combat Care. The primary intent of Tactical Combat Care is to reduce preventable combat deaths. 20% of combat deaths are due to a preventable cause. There's a couple other intents of Tccc. One is to allow the unit to complete the mission, and it's also to provide the most efficient care with the tools necessary and in the environment that you're in. So there's three objectives to Tccc. The first one is to identify casualties with preventable causes of death. Now, what does that mean, right? So it's kind of extreme, but think about it this way. You're not going to treat somebody who's decapitated, right? Like, it's not a preventable cause of death. There's no reason to treat them. So you want to make sure that you're seeing those people who have the greatest chance of survival and treating those first. The second is to prevent additional casualties and to identify the threat. So this is kind of a twofold objective, right? On one hand, you want to prevent other people from getting shot by eliminating the threat first. But on the other hand, you want to make sure that that person who maybe got shot once isn't going to get shot 5 or 6 times after that, right? It's a lot more for you to treat, and their chances of survival go down a lot. So the third objective is to complete the mission. You're going to hear this a lot, but the Air Force's motto kind of is mission first, people always. So things get hard, things get tough. We do risk our lives, right? So you can't just give up on the mission, right? That's why that objective is up there. There's 3 phases to Tccc. The first one is care under fire, and this is effective care under hostile enemy fire. The first objective in this is to make sure that you're eliminating the threat. And why is that important, right? Well, because if I haven't eliminated the threat and I'm rushing out because I'm like, I'm going to save Cadet Doro, and then I get shot, now my team is like, come on, Cadet Stifler, like, that, so that's why you want to really eliminate the threat. Now, if your casualty can get out of the way, you're going to tell them to seek cover. And what does that situation look like? Well, if I get shot in my arm or in my shoulder and I'm still conscious and I'm functioning, you're going to say, hey, Cadet Stifler, get out of the fire, right? Then you're going to try and maybe drag them out if they're unconscious, but we'll kind of get to those scenarios a little bit later in the lead lab. So the second phase is tactical field care. This is the one that we're primarily going to be focusing on, and you're not under fire, you're relatively safe. What does that mean too? Well, you might still be in hostile enemy territory, but you're not taking active fire. So maybe you've eliminated the threat, or the threat has withdrawn, right? And it's kind of that moment for you to sit back and go, oh, like assessing what's happening. So you're going to want to treat life-threatening things. You're going to do your primary assessment, which Cadet Dora will talk about a little bit later. That's going to be airway, breathing, circulation. And you're going to treat all other life-threatening injuries. The final stage of Tccc is tactical evacuation care. This is when you've gotten your casualty to an evacuation point, and they're going to be treated on those evacuation vehicles, such as helicopters, etc. And that's going to be by EMTs or flight nurses. So they're going to do a little bit more of that in-depth stuff, surgeries, but they're going to still check for those big life-threatening wounds and just kind of provide that extra step of care. So the goal of Tccc, right, is to get them to that point, to get them to tactical evacuation care. So with that, I'll hand it to Cadet Doro to start.
Thank you. So first, we're going to do a tactical field care primary assessment. So this is if you stumble upon someone who's unconscious and you need to do the ABCs, which would be airway, breathing, and circulation. And you can do all 3 of those at the same exact time by doing a look, listen, and feel. So first, what you're going to want to do is take your fingers and go along the jawline to the carotid artery, where you will find the pulse. And if they do have a pulse, then that's great, because that means they're alive. Otherwise, you're going to bend down and look at their chest to see if they are breathing. While you're looking down at their chest, you're going to put your ear to listen to their breath coming out of their mouth. So in this situation, Cadet Stifler she does have a pulse, but she's unconscious and she's not breathing. To open up the airway, you're going to come up to the head, and if you do not think that they have a spinal injury, you're going to do a head tilt chin lift. And that requires your hand going on the forehead and then opening up the mouth while pulling down the jaw. And that opens up the airway for that. If you do think that they have a spinal injury, That would be a fall, drowning, or anything that you think their spine could be hurt. Instead of moving the neck and head area to protect the spine, you're just gonna open the mouth, and then you're gonna push up on the jaw. So this is called a jaw thrust, and you are just opening up the jaw and opening the airway. Then after that, once you have the airway done and opened, your second person, hopefully you'll have a second person, will come and do a blood sweep. What is a blood sweep? A blood sweep is performed on someone that's unconscious, and you're just checking to see if there is blood anywhere on the person. They're going to be wearing, hopefully, like a uniform like this, where it's all covered, and you're going to start at the head, and you're going to go down and pat down the arms, the chest, down to the legs, and every few inches, you're just going to want to look at your hand to see if there's any blood. The dark red and kind of slow flowing blood will be your venous and capillary bleeding, and those are not as important. They're still important to apply direct pressure to, but the one that you're going to focus on is a bright red splurting blood, and they will die in minutes, really, from blood loss, so make sure to treat that first. If you come across someone who has, let's say, a wound on this side, and you start hearing hissing, frothing, bubbling, they have blue lips, they have trouble breathing, they're coughing up blood, this will most likely be a sucking chest wound. A sucking chest wound is just a puncture to the lung. So you're going to take a piece of hard plastic or ID. You'll most likely have your ID on you. And you're going to take it to the side. You're going to tape down 3 sides. At field training, they'll most likely tell you to tape down 4 sides. At field training, tape down 4 sides. If you want to save someone, tape down 3 sides. Because whenever you put it down, what this card is doing is it's allowing the air from the lung to come out, but not allowing air to come back in. So you're going to want to have that extra side open so that way the air can come out. If the second chest wound is on the front of the chest, you first want to flip them over and remember to protect the head, because there will most likely be an exit wound. You want to treat the exit wound first, since that will be worse than the front. So you're going to treat it just like how you did with the front, taping down 3 sides, come back to the front, tape down 3 sides, and there you go. That's the most that you can do. Next, we're going to do an arterial bleed. The thing that you will most likely have on you to use as a tourniquet will be your belt, which is on your ABUs. If you have a tourniquet, that's great, because those work a lot better. So let's say Cadet Stifler lost the bottom half of her arm. You want to have your belt come around the top of the joint, and then you want to tighten it as much as possible so it cuts off all the circulation from that artery in her arm. And you want to have it tight to where it stops all bleeding. Once you have a tourniquet on there, do not remove it. That will be for the EMTs or flight nurses to take care of that and take it off. Once you have it on there and secured, either the tourniquet or the belt, you want to write on their forehead a T and then the time that you placed the tourniquet on there. Do not use any of your shoelaces, because it will basically, you'll lose an arm because the shoelace string is too thin. If you have an arterial bleed that's on the neck or the abdomen area, do not use a tourniquet because you will kill them. Instead, you will use just packing bandages. You'll place it on there, and then you'll secure it, pack it, direct pressure, and then pray, because otherwise there's no hope in it. Now on to fractures. Stand up, thank you.
Or sit up, not stand up.
Next, we'll be doing fractures. There's two types of fractures. We have an open fracture and a closed fracture. A closed fracture is where the bone is not broken the skin. So this will be swelling, bruising, any pain. The position is kind of weird that you'll see. It might be shorter than the other. And an open fracture, on the other hand, will be, you'll see the bone, you'll see blood, you'll see it. With that, Kat Stifler, her forearm is broken. Whether it's an open fracture or a closed fracture, you want to place padding down first. So, Kat Stifler, you broke your forearm.
I did.
First, you want to prepare the casualty by clearing out a space. She does not have a blouse on, which is good, so it's already cleared. Next, you're going to position it. If they are awake, they can help you. If they're unconscious, then you can kind of do this yourself of just like positioning it onto a rigid object. These are the rigid objects that we'll be using. Most likely you'll have these or sticks. Most likely sticks. You will place it one on top of the other, just like this. And you will get some padding to also place below it so that way they're more comfortable. And before you want to fully secure it, you want to do PMS, which stands for pulse, motor, and then sensory. With pulse, you can check their radial pulse, which is next to their thumb, or you can do a capillary refill, which would mean just pinching one of the fingernails. If it turns white and then back to pink, you have good enough capillary refill and pulse. Next, you'll do motor. Can you move your fingers, please? And finally, you'll do sensory, which will be, which finger am I holding?
Pointer finger.
Pointer finger, great. So she has all three of those. If she doesn't, then she has some kind of brain injury. But anyways, we will then secure it by wrapping the rigid objects with a piece of cloth or some type of comfortable fabric. After this is all done, you will secure the piece with another piece of cloth. So I'm going to have Kat Stifler place the arm next to her body because you want to secure it somewhere onto their body. So you're just gonna wrap it a few times. Wrap a few times. And then also you can put padding near the neck part because it's being held up. So you can place just a little bit of padding around the neck. After this, make sure to do the PMS again, which will be the pulse, motor, and sensory. So pulse, you can do the capillary refill like I described before. Can you move your fingers? And then which finger am I touching?
Ring finger.
Great.
Yeah, and so something to say is like when Kadora secured it to my arm, securing to the body's always good. So like if my left leg is broken, right, like wrap it to my right leg. Obviously I'm not gonna be able to walk, but I probably couldn't walk anyway if my left leg is like injured. So if you can't secure it to the body for some reason, like maybe it's bent at a really weird angle, secure it to another rigid object, do your best to pad it on the sides. But yeah, that's kind of our little Tccc thing.
And also, if you have another serious injury, please do not splint first. The first thing that you want to do is do the ABCs of airway, breathing, and circulation, taking care of an arterial bleed, if that's what it is, because you don't want to splint before taking care of an arterial bleed.
Yeah, so kind of on order, ABCs are important, obviously, but Cadet Duro said it to me a couple days ago. She was like, there's no reason to do ABCs if they have massive blood loss because oxygen can't travel if there's no blood. So ideally, you would have a two-man team or so, right? So one person maybe is making sure that that person's breathing and somebody else is getting ready to work on that arterial bleed kind of at the same time. These kind of are in order, right? Like treat the most dangerous things first, but at the same time, like at some points you might have to use a little bit of judgment. I mean, unfortunately with battlefield injuries, they're usually pretty gruesome. So if I've lost like my leg and my arm, right? Like what are you going to treat first? That's kind of going to be on severity and how bad it is. But hopefully this was helpful for you. We're going to have this video available for you to look up, and as well as kind of a little bit of information that we used. So yeah, with that, we're going to have you guys go to some scenarios, and hopefully you'll be able to do it yourselves. So.